Okay, I will go ahead and begin our session. I would like to welcome everyone to our Neafcs Association meeting. Typically, this would have been at the end of the day yesterday, and today we would be on the Hill visiting our representatives. Unfortunately, this year, we have to do this virtually. Hopefully next year we can be in Washington, D.C. and get back to doing business in person. That being said, I want to thank everyone for taking the time to join us today. I think we did get some great information on telling our story. And as I was driving into the office this morning, I was thinking that I really need to work on doing a better job of telling my story. And I asked myself, why? And I decided that it's because I really don't like to toot my own horn. And I bet there's some others, I see some heads shaking. We don't like to do that. We can talk about other people, but when it comes to ourselves, so that's something that I need to work on, is tooting my horn so I can tell my story. One of the great tools that we have in telling our story is our Neafcs impact statements. And Mary Liz is going to be talking about those in a few minutes. One of the things that we always hear when we share those with people is that, wow, these are great. The other extension professional associations don't put a document like that together, so that kind of sets us apart. For those of you that were at the ELC Association meeting, some of what we may be doing may be a little similar, and that's because the 2020 and the 2020-2021 board worked on our strategic plan, and we're going to be releasing that very soon. But in January of last year, when the board started working on that, we had no idea how things were going to change. So we'll be asking some of the same questions, and that's so that we can gather information so that in the near future, maybe before our plan expires in 2023, we can make some changes that will correlate to the new way of doing business. And it also helps us figure out what you, our members, need. One of the things that the board is working on is growing future leaders. We have a new leadership and mentoring committee, and I don't know if any of you are on that, but they've developed a program called the Neafcs Leadership Experience. And that's a mentoring program. If you didn't make the application deadline this year, be on the lookout for next year's application deadline. And we also have a new leadership ladder that we shared at ELC, and I'll be sharing it again. And one of the things that I like to think about, and actually this is something that I found on a fortune in a fortune cookie, and I've always kept it. A leader is a person you will follow to a place you wouldn't go by yourself. So I always look at that as, what do I need to do? And I want to encourage and inspire each of you to develop your leadership skills. Yes, we would like to grow you into future Neafcs leaders, i.e. national board members, but I know that is not everyone's ultimate goal, but I want to encourage and inspire each of you to be the best leader that you can be. We offer scholarships to the PILD conference. We offer scholarships to the ELC conference. So those are all tools that we have to help grow you as leaders. We look constantly at what benefits we're offering our members. So it's those scholarships. Our awards program is a great member benefit. The professional development that we offer with webinars in our annual session, which fingers crossed, we will all be able to be in Grand Rapids, Michigan at the beginning of November. One of the things that we're starting, and I think the notice went out from Will, is connecting with colleagues. That's a networking opportunity. The first one is going to be talking about food preservation. So those of you that do home food preservation classes like I do, you can get on and talk to others that do those same types of programs. I'm sorry, I don't remember the date, but Will might know it and could put it in the chat. And that group that is working on that is going to have other topics as well, so that you can join in with members who have like interests as you and talk about things that are working. And then as a board, we're also looking at partnerships with outside organizations. So more to come on that. And this morning we have Beverly Coberly from the Extension Foundation. She wanted a few minutes just to update us on what is going on at the foundation. So I will go ahead and turn it over to Beverly for a few minutes.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me today. I've been able to meet with you the last 2 or 3 times as your association, and just to tell you what's happening at the foundation. I am going to see if I've got the right one here. I'm going to put a document in chat so that after I leave and I'm gone, you have something that you can look at that kind of defines a little bit about what we're doing right now in the foundation. So basically, maybe we started out this discussion that several years ago we were like a technology platform, and we continue to have the technology platform with Ask and Ask Extension. We used to be Ask an Expert, now we're Ask Extension. We're working on some artificial intelligence through some of our grant programs with NTAE, and actually one that we're looking at for next year has to do with food preservation, and we're looking to do that right now. We're doing it with IPM and have a pilot in California with our IPM program, and we're looking to help with machine learning to help you all answer questions. And the way they're going to be designed is they're always designed so that wherever the question originates from, the question gets answered from the same state. We're very sensitive to that. It's not a pie in the sky where somebody's answering the question, because we always want it tied back to the local person who can follow up with additional information. So I just will take a few minutes and tell you the kind of programs we have now. We have one that's coming up. It's called the National Technologies for Ag Extension, New Technologies for Ag Extension. And the reason it's important is we're we're recruiting for projects right now. And the projects that we have, what happens is in those projects is if you are a selected project, we have something called them wraparound services. Now we call them key informant. We purchase a little of your time as a fellow, and then we put all these services around to help you accelerate your project in the area that your project is in. And those projects need to be aligned with USDA strategic goals and with ECOP program priorities. Well, in those areas, pretty much anything you're going to be doing with the family can end up in one of those areas, particularly in foods, nutrition, and almost anything you do. So I would encourage you to look at that. The projects go for a year, and we spend a year helping folks to get off the ground and do something that scopes their project differently, that helps them to get greater impact, to help them serve new and different audiences. So I would encourage you to look at the New Technologies for Ag Extension, and don't be put off by the word ag in it, because it has to do with the U.S. strategic goals, which covers all of the kinds of things that we deal with: families, youth, agriculture, communities. So the other one that we have, which you probably won't have too much connection to, is the Pesticide Safety Education Management Program. Just so that you know, we're in different ways. We have a grant from EPA that we work with your pesticide safety education coordinators, and they get money. We help distribute the money through that grant for them to use in their pesticide safety education training program. So you wouldn't have thought about e-extension doing that, right? So that's a little different kind of thing that we do. And I just used the word e-extension. Our name is formally changing to Extension Foundation, so that We get the techie thing out of it. We still do tech kinds of things, but we're not all about techie. We're about helping to deliver programs for greater impact at the local level. The one that you may have heard about recently that's actually in the process, we're finishing up, trying to get it ready to get started, is that we call it the Excite program. And this is the Extension Collaborative for Immunization, Teaching, and Engagement. You may have been on a webinar where you saw that we talked about having funds from CDC to work with vaccination hesitancy across the country, and then some pilot ideas for immunization education. So where this is at is if you go to our website and look at the Excite website, you would find that there's two activities in this grant coming up. One of them is a national media campaign that we will be working with Center for Disease Control, and it will be relative to Vaccinate with Confidence, and it's a media campaign. And all land grant institutions can apply for this money. It's something like 24,000 if you're in 1862 and 26 if you're in 1890 or 1994, I believe. But anyway, it's money to help you to get to a priority audience, to help them have more information, to help with this whole idea to relieve the vaccine hesitancy across the country for improved health of our folks. The second piece of the activity is where there will be around 20 pilots selected, and they will each be funded for up to $200,000. There can be one from each institution. And what this is about is an opportunity to define a priority population and how you might be working with your local health professionals and various peoples in your community to make sure that you hit and you get into that priority population to see if we can get into the populations and make a difference. And there's all different kinds of what you want to call a priority population, but the populations that need assistance. And this too, the first activity is mostly about COVID. The second one is about all vaccinations, immunization, education, and it's to deepen our relationships with health departments, state health departments, centers for disease control throughout cooperative extension across the country. So I kind of rambled about that, but I do want, if you have questions, call me. Michelle Rogers is the project director. She's the director out of Delaware, and she has reassigned time to be our project director for the Excite program. We would really welcome your interest. I'm running out of my 5 minutes, so I'm going to hurry on. I know, Diane, I'm trying. There's so many cool things. The other thing that we have just announced on our website is we have put together a national program registry and asset database. And what that means is, I was at some meeting and somebody had a program they talked about, but now I've lost their card. I can't figure it out, but I know they did something. I would like to see if I can't query and find what this program is. So we're encouraging people to use this national program database to put your programs in, share some information so that your colleagues can come and share, and you can go share with programs. And we intend to also have images in it for assets, because a lot of times having assets of the images, where are they stored? How do you deal with those? So this is a national registry that we're putting into place. We continue to have e-field books, e-publishing. The whole notion of that is we work a lot with that through our NTAE program, but on the publishing, the idea is as content comes out and as processes, as we learn, we encourage people to write about it in a scholarly way. It's not the same as a peer-reviewed journal article, but it is a peer-reviewed published article so that we can share information and help each other do our work. In Connect Extension, if you have an interest, there's also on our website where you can get into a networking website, and in that you can just sign up, work with Erin Wybe, who is our communications person, and it's a network. We have all kinds of things in there, webinars, virtual chats. You can work together on a project. You can chat in there. It's called Connect Extension. And we continue to have campus where you've seen many courses, webinars, and things that are in Learn that help you learn. And the other thing that we do, and this is for members only, we continue to have our Impact Collaborative and a leadership opportunity through the Extension Foundation. In the Impact Collaborative, the whole notion is on innovation, With our NTAE grant, the idea is acceleration and iteration. So the one on innovation is to help us think more innovatively about how to reach new audiences, how to do our programs a little differently. And if we haven't been through a year of innovation relative to COVID and moving virtually, we've all learned a lot. So there's a lot of things to continue to learn about how to do projects and work together. So that's our Impact Collaborative. If you're a member institution, there will be a summit in the fall. The last thing I'm going to share with you is we have branched into leadership, and Carl Bradley brings leadership training to some of our projects and has some things on the web relative to leadership. We found that that was a gap that we had many times in places, that teams need leadership, leaders need leadership training. We need always to help one another. So I rushed through the comments here, but I wanted you to know that the Extension Foundation is here to serve you, and you have to let us know how we can serve you better. We continue to want to grow and become. We continue to try to work to get grants that cover all of cooperative extension to support the kinds of things that are needed. And so right now we're working with the two big ones, is this Excite one out of CDC, and we're also working with ECOP on climate. So we are really trying to find ways to position ourselves to serve you and help get money back into the roles and programs you do, along with the kinds of technology things, because we are in a digital world. We're not going to leave digital engagement with our programming, and we're going to continue with that, but our content and our processes have to continue to grow with the needs of our customers and clients. So do you have any questions for me?
This is Suzanne Dreesen from Minnesota. Thank you for that. Wow, I'm like, I had no clue. But so how does one know if your institution is a member, and what are they a member of?
Okay, back years ago, I'll go back to the history real quick. When we first were put together, E-Extension was put together, and we were based on the assessment that was done for like ECOP and all of that. And so then late 2008 or 10, somewhere, maybe 14, they decided that they wanted to do it differently. So we were launched as a 501c3 foundation. So if you're a member of the foundation, and the cost of that membership is based on that previous assessment from where we all started. So because we are a member organization as a foundation, we have some things that we serve our members with, the leadership, the Impact Collaborative. But the foundation really sort of seeks to serve all of Extension. You know, our goal is to serve all of Extension. So when we go after grants and nationally funded things, we get things that all land-grant universities can participate in. Does that kind of answer your question? Okay, thank you. No, we were always available for you. I encourage you to come to our website and look up the Excite program that's coming up, and the NTAE. Those are two possibilities for funding or support for your projects. We just had some we're really happy to serve cooperative extension in the way we are. So I thank you for your time. I think I went past my allotted 5 minutes. I get so excited about what we're doing and want to share. I'm an old HES person. Back in the day, I served at a county level and did lots of we called it HES programming back then. I'm old, and then I found my way into administration. So I'm always excited when I can find ways that the foundation can serve the people in the field where they're doing the job, where the real work happens. Not that all the rest of you aren't doing real work, but you know, that's where the behavior change occurs, and that's what we like. So thank you for.
We have a lot of things popping up in the chat. Wow. Okay, Mindy said the best ideas haven't been thought of yet. Mary Liz, we work in an organization that is your education partner for life. Sarah Sprouse, to sum up what we do, I am your educational partner for life. So that's twice. Angela, connecting and networking. Libby, know your stuff. Know who you are stuffing and keep stuffing. Tammy said, we have to tell our story. I mean, and I mentioned that's something I need to work on because I don't like bragging or telling or tooting my own horn. Cheryl, communicate, 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 and innovate. Yeah, Dr. Hibbard did a good job of talking about innovation. Gail, keep stuffing. Lauren, it was something about stuffing. Ha ha. Mary Ann, hire the hungry, humble, and smart. Liz, always be prepared to give a 2-sentence update to stakeholders at any time. Yeah, sometimes when we do, we go on and on and on. And I think then they kind of like, huh? Danielle from Iowa, imperfection is what makes extension relevant. Kirsten, communication is key. Lori, courage is the commitment to begin without any guarantee of success. Christina, always take the meeting. Sometimes it may not be with who you wanted to meet with, but you never know who knows who. So always take the meeting to share the extension story. And yeah, that was one of the things when I first attended PILD. You're meeting with staffers who, in my case, are much younger than me, but they're the ears to our representatives. Gina, stuffing. Joy, find out who you are and do it on purpose. A quote from Dolly Parton. Carla, communicate, prepare, and commit. Suzanne, if you don't have a seat at the table, you don't have a menu. A quote from Elizabeth Warren. Emily, we cannot do this work alone. No, our volunteers are very important to us. Rosie, we sometimes serve 2 masters, the county and the university. Joy, know your stuff, know who you're stuffing, and keep stuffing. So stuffing was a big thing that came through. Jean, the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in serving others. Laura, we are the windows through which our elected officials see extension. Lorna, I enjoyed Monday's keynote speaker talking about the book, The Leadership Challenge, Inspire a Shared Vision. Lynn, if you are not at the table, you are on the menu. Carrie, communicate, communicate, and communicate. Vicki, a sense of community has been very important during the pandemic. Amanda, even when you think you have shared your story enough, share it again. Kayla, I actually wrote a quote from yesterday. This is what increased funding for blank project would do for me, blank. How to lobby without lobbying. Heather, have an elevator speech, practice it, communicate to others. Janet, know what stuffing, know who's stuffing, and keep on stuffing. Jenny said, PILD has motivated me to do more innovative programming. And Shannon, know your stuff, talk your stuff, and keep on stuffing. Be flexible with whom you're talking to, be authentic, and have fun. Olivia, lead an organization that will be your education partner for life. Carla, the wise adapt themselves to circumstances as water molds itself to the pitcher. Mary Ann, things that matter the most should never be at the mercy of things that matter the least. Amy, exemplary leadership practices make an impact. Model the way, inspire a shared vision, challenge the process, enable others to act, and encourage the heart. Janet has another one, not a mandate, but an essential service. And then Lauren said, so many good ones, she'll have to save the chat. Yeah, I mean, I think that this has been a great 1.5-day conference, and we're just wrapping it up today. So thank you all for sharing. And I see a lot of things that can be included in the reflection paragraph that those of you scholarship recipients will have to submit. So great job. I'm going to go ahead and let Mary Liz talk about our impact statements, which are a great tool that we have in telling our story. So Mary Liz.
Thank you, Diane. Oh, it was so encouraging to read those comments in the chat. Yeah, it has been a really good day and a half. And as Diane said, please include those thoughts in your reflection. You can write a paragraph. You could also do a video. We've had some great success with little short videos within our organization. So consider that when you're talking about what you learned at PILD or what you intend to use in your work life. And so one of those things that is really an important part of PILD, as Diane said, we should be on our way to the Hill today and making those in-person visits with the staffers of our legislators. But since we can't do that, I know that some states, actually, I was in a meeting this morning with other folks from Illinois, and we're planning virtual visits. And those are going to be valuable as well. If you can't schedule a virtual visit, then you can always contact them via email or send some of our impact statements through the regular mail. Sorry, I must be hungry. It's almost lunchtime. Anyway, we're talking about impact. Diane was talking about sharing our story and how hard that is. And as hard as it is, we do a good job. When you look at these impact statements, there's several of them on our website. You just click on the public affairs tab and then hit impact statements, and they will all be there for this year. And they're there for you to share. Take a minute or two or 5 minutes and look through them. Here's the one I just randomly chose, childhood obesity. And I've noticed many of our attendees are some of the editors that help with these this year. And we have a wonderful group of editors. And just to clue you in on how this process goes, what we do is we ask that people submit success stories in the template on the website for their state. And so then we take all of those, and there's usually around 300 submissions. We divide them into subject areas, and then each editor, we have an editor for each subject, then takes the submissions and condenses them into a Word document. And sometimes that's really hard to do. And then what that happens after that is then I take the condensed versions, and with Danielle's design of this wonderful template, I put them into the format that you see here. Now, let's look at this and just pretend you're a staffer, and you're handed this, and you look at it, and immediately what are you drawn to? The pictures and the quotes. And that's what we really need. We need those to be meaty. We need those to help tell our story. All of the body of print, that's where we put some numbers, we put some money. That's also important. If you can value your program, if you can say, as a result of this program, the people of Nebraska saved X a number of dollars towards food safety education, or something like that. So just to look at this one briefly, I usually write a little introductory paragraph that kind of sets the stage. This gives some statistics about childhood obesity. It tells the staffer that obviously we have a problem. So then we have a nice quote here from Indiana about how they've been using the I Am Moving, I Am Learning program. Really cool. That shows if not a behavior change, then certainly a change in knowledge. And then we highlight some programs. You'll notice the states are bold. And so if I'm a staffer, I'm going to be looking for my state, right? And so that is how we're set up. The picture shows, it's really nice if you can have like an action type photo showing participants in a program. So that's what we've done for several years. I've been involved in this process for probably 7 years or so. So anyway, I'm pretty familiar with how this goes. But yesterday, I went to a session. I was actually the moderator for the session on the templates that Utah uses. And although I love these, and these tell our story as a nation, as a national organization, and we can show our huge impact there, what Utah did or does is they have these templates with, actually for them, it's with their state information, and then they have some little windows within the template itself that people can customize for their own information. And that just struck me as very interesting, because when we were listening to the session about how to talk to the staffers, how to get your point across, they said repeatedly to make it personal, make it local, make it about the person you're talking to's district. And so I'm thinking, and it won't be my job because my time will be over, but I think maybe we should have some little windows in ours that can be personalized, so that when you share these with your legislators, you can say, see, here's exactly what we've been doing in Arkansas or Mississippi or what have you. It will continue to show the national, because, you know, we want to be shown as a, you know, we're everywhere. But yes, we're everywhere, but here's what we're doing in your district. And so I think I'm going to bring that up to the committee and see what they think about maybe doing that next year. Are there any questions or comments? I would love to get your impact. Have you used these? Have you gotten feedback from legislators? Oh, okay. It looks like Missouri's already doing it. Great. Good. Yeah, I agree. I think it is I think it's something that we should certainly consider. But I'd like to thank everyone for, if you've ever contributed to one of these, now you know why. It makes us look really good. So thank you all for your efforts in that. And as I said, moving forward, we're going to, I hope that the person who is the VP of Public Affairs next year will take this into consideration. And please feel free to volunteer to be on that editing committee. I think, well, I know Amy and Becca and a few of the others on here have done a time or two, and it's a daunting task, but the final product is certainly rewarding. All right, with that, I'm going to toss it back over to Diane. We don't want this to run any longer than it needs to, but please use those impact statements, share them, and help tell our story. So Diane.
Thanks, Mary Liz, and a great big thank you to you and your committee, because I know that putting those together is a daunting task. One of the other groups that I like to share them with is our state administrators. You know, they can look through and see Texas and see what we're doing in comparison to what other states are doing. And I know sometimes that's a good measure, you know, hey, we have a program on childhood obesity, and, you know, that's a great trend and we're right there with it. So moving on, I'm going to talk a little bit about our leadership ladder. And some of you may have seen this. It's on the website. And Lori Coop talked about it a little bit during the ELC conference. And I know Will put a link, and here it is. You know, one of the things that we want to do as a board is grow leaders. And you may need to, you know, figure out, is my ultimate goal to be on the national board? I can tell you that when I started, my goal was not to be on the national board. And when I first accepted a position on the national board, my goal was not to be the president, but it has just progressed that way. And it's actually one of the best things that I have done in my extension career. I'm sorry, I had some people come into my office. They did not read the sign on the door that said they were not supposed to enter. Anyway, being on the national board and has been one of the greatest experiences. It has allowed me to develop my leadership skills. And more than that, I have created some great personal relationships with people across the country. And I think that is probably one of the greatest benefits of serving on the national board. So with this leadership ladder, there are steps for success. The first one is to review our mission, vision, and creed. And if you go to the NEAFCS website, under About NEAFCS, all of those are there, the mission, the vision, and the creed. So you can take a minute and look at those. The next step is to look at our governing documents, our bylaws, policies, procedures, manual, code of conduct, and other policies. And those are on the Member Center. Under the Member Center tab, you have to log in, and then there is a document library. And that's where those are located. And then the next step, participate on national committees. And I served on the awards training subcommittee. And it kind of, I guess, happened by accident. I was at my first annual session, and I was with another of my Texas colleagues, and she was going to the subcommittee meeting. And she said, "Come on, go with me." So I did. So I was on that committee. Then I worked my way up to chair of that committee. You can also serve as an officer of your state affiliate, and I know many of you have or are currently serving as affiliate leaders or as a committee chairperson. So I was a leader in the Texas affiliate. When I started Extension, Michelle Wright, who is our current Vice President for Member Resources, was very involved with our state affiliate. So I just kind of followed in her footsteps, and I served in a couple of leadership positions there. And then I started attending the annual session and the business meeting. I know many of you have probably served as a voting delegate, and that's great. But our business meeting is open to all members. So if you are not a voting delegate, you are still welcome to come and see what's going on with NEAFCS. NEAFCS is a unique organization in that we have a lot of volunteer opportunities for our members. At annual session, you can serve as a room host. We have people working at the registration desk. Several of our committees have things going on at annual session. Just so you know, attending annual session is not required to serve on a committee. A lot of committees take care of their business outside of annual session. The committee that writes the impact statements the impact statements have been published, so their work is complete. So they're not having to do their work at annual session, like say the ceremony committee for the awards ceremony. Now, all of our committees usually meet at annual session, but that's not required. And then the pinnacle would be applying for national office. And the qualifications are listed on the back page, on the second page of the leadership ladder. And I was looking at this and I kind of chuckled to myself that the president and president-elect has actually fewer qualifications than a lot of the others. But in that position, you should have served, or you must have served on the board. So that encompasses some of the other qualifications. Attended 3 or more annual sessions, and we've changed to where the annual session to where you would be elected can count as your 3rd annual session. And then experience in leadership and management, and you can look at all of the other offices to see what the qualifications are. This year, public affairs, awards and recognition, the treasurer and the Southern and Central Regional Director positions are open. So we have a rotation so that we have people on the board that do have experience. And then if you look at the top of this page and the bottom of the first page, there are some roles for the committee members and just some of the traits that are good to have. You know, looking at a national board member, just picking a few of them, inspires others, demonstrates passion, strategic thinking, displays commitment. And there are traits listed for your role as a committee member, your role as a committee chair, and your role as a national board member. So with all of this being said, I just want to encourage all of you to reach your leadership goals. We all have leadership goals that are different, and they all change as we progress along. You know, when I started involvement on a committee, I never dreamed that I would be serving as a national board member, much less as the president. So dream deep, because you can achieve your goals. And I hope that each of you will consider either maintaining your involvement or moving forward and becoming a great NEAFCS leader. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Janie and Will for the next part of our meeting. So thank you, everyone, for serving as NEAFCS leaders.
Okay, welcome to everyone. I really appreciate everybody joining. We're kind of wanting to do some breakout rooms and kind of try to find out a little bit about how you've made it through the epidemic and through the pandemic. Through the pandemic. So I think Will is going to randomly put us into the breakout rooms. And then you're going to have a leader in each room that will give you 3 questions. We'll answer those. We're going to take about 10 minutes. Then we're going to come back together and we're going to kind of report on what we felt like was the best answer for the questions we were given. Well, thanks everyone for the discussion. I mean, I know my group had a wonderful discussion. I was in group 1 and everybody had a lot of input into the discussion and a lot of great ideas. The way we're going to kind of do this is I'm going to kind of report back and of what my group did talk about. And then we'll move on to group 2 and 3 and 4 or whatever. And if you have any comments or whatever, you can add those into the chat box. So our discussion was on let me see if I can pull it up here. What challenges will you face in the next 1 to 5 years as an extension professional? And what role can NEAFCS play in preparing you to meet those challenges? And the things that we talked about were financial, the financial challenges that we're facing today in extension. And we talked about, to create to show our legislators how that we have created a return on their investment and kind of let people know that can't read my notes here. Then we also talked about access to broadband internet, and we talked about that Extension could probably do like a study or whatever to kind of let people know what's needed, what's wanted, what's, all of that, because we are an unbiased organization. We also talked about one of the challenges is transitioning back to in-person and back to the office. And so one of the ways we talked about that NEAFCS could help us with that was to provide additional new networking opportunities that we could bounce ideas off of each other. And we also talked about the housing boom that has happened across the country. And we were talking about how that maybe, that also could provide some networking opportunities to help us with that. That we were talking about social media and, helping getting involved with big employers and that type thing. Our second question was, what have you, what is one work-related skill you have learned during the pandemic and intend to use in the future? And for sure, the online platforms such as Zoom, how to do those online programming. And we also learned a lot about presentation skills and improved upon those presentation skills. One of the work-related, what is one work-related skill you need to refresh after the pandemic? And we talked about work-life balance and ways we could, get that work-life balance. We talked about patience, being able to work together as a team now, because we've all been in our homes, and even though we've had meetings and that type thing, it's not the same. So, just re-engaging each other and re-engaging our volunteers were some of the challenges and some of the skills that we're going to have to refresh upon. So, okay, that's basically what we did in group 1. Mary Liz, can you tell us what your group discussed in group 2?
All right, thank you, Jenny. We had an able scribe volunteer, or I don't know, maybe she was coerced, but anyway, Janet Johnson is going to share with us what group 2 did.
Hi, everybody. This is Janet. I'm down here in Alabama, and actually, I'm actually the secretary for another meeting. And I tell them I don't take minutes, I take notes. And I have to be very careful that I don't infuse my stuff into my own thoughts into those notes. But anyway, our first question was challenges for the next 5 to 10 years as an extension professional, and how we would like NEAFCS to help. And Heather from Texas, she's a SNAP Ed agent, and she's funded via the state and not local. So one of the problems that we're thinking about having is the NEAFCS impact statements, is to be able to use those to share so that maybe they can get more funding in the state. So that was one thing. They don't even have an FCS agent where she is. The huge gap that we see in showing impacts, and that maybe we could use impacts from other states to show what's being done. So that's one of the things. So NEAFCS could help with that. Toy in North Carolina said we do have the food insecurity issue as a result of COVID, and how we're going to address that issue, plus the different cultures that we may have of people coming in. It's a trust issue, especially in the atmosphere that we kind of have today. There's the big trust issue, and how we can break down those barriers and communicate with people and be respectful. And then some of the other thing is the programming change, how it's going to look to better serve our clientele, whether it's going to remain virtual or do more face-to-face, And Vicki in Kentucky just said, one, the volunteer issue. A lot of times it was stated that our volunteers were maybe the older population, and just with COVID, kind of rebuilding that volunteer base may be a little bit harder in the future. Our second question was one work-related skill that we've learned that we're going to have to probably continue to use. And one of the things was technology. videography, as well as the new platforms that we're using like Zoom and Hoover, the one that we used for PILD. One of the things that Mary Liz said was about learning new stuff and how that helps the brain. And one of the things she said was that this pandemic kind of was her Alzheimer's postponement period, because it was forcing her brain to continue to learn things, and we did like that. So it was about the technology, how we're going to learn to use it, lighting, backgrounds, all of that wonderful stuff. The third question was the skill that we will need to refresh after the pandemic. And Toy said, going back to in-person meetings, we have been doing things virtually a lot. And so having that not only confidence, but, kind of a little bit getting over our fear factor of going back out there as well, because we don't always know a lot that's going on. And then Mary Liz said also slowing it down. One of the things, and I can say this because I had to jump off a meeting to jump onto this one, is when you're the only person talking, you can keep on going and keep on going, till you get your thought out, where when you're more that face to face, you can actually see people and realize that you need to pause and slow it down so that they can jump in and tell their story. And you're not worried about that time factor. When it's videography and everything's like, don't be longer than 3 minutes. You got to do this in 30 seconds. And so one of the things that we've learned with PIL is we have to tell our story, but we have to make it relevant. So that means we also have to take the time to listen to the stories coming in. So I probably added a little stuff in there, my spin on it, like I said, I might do.
Well, Janet, I think that captured our conversation very well. Thank you so much. And now I'm going to toss it over to group number 3. And Diane, what did you folks learn?
Well, Sarah Sprouse from Iowa took our notes, and so she's going to share what we talked about. But I'm sitting here going, on some of these questions, we had came up with some of the same responses. So I'll let Sarah go ahead and share what our group talked about.
Thank you, Diane, and you're right. So some of this might sound familiar, but for the first question, as far as what are the greatest needs of our members and how can Neafcs, what can they provide? Someone mentioned that we really appreciate the opportunity to network and connect, needing help with scholarship and research and how we can connect that to our community's needs. Another idea also was with FCS declining nationally. We received some really great talking points this week about how to talk about cooperative extension in general, but now we need some guidance and some talking points that we can integrate in that on FCS and NEAFCS mission. So how can we do that all together? How can we encourage FCS to increase, because we know we need it. And so then also another topic that was mentioned was diversity, equity, and inclusion. We're increasingly focusing on this initiative, and we need help to navigate all of the information that we're receiving and how to apply that within our program areas. So the second question, let's see. Oh, I forgot, there was some other, still on question 1. We also had someone in our group that said it would be nice to have some acknowledgement of where our land grant universities are, where they got their land from, honoring our Indigenous people. And that's very important, to be thoughtful about how we came to be as a land grant university. So the second question, one work-related skill learned during the pandemic, we talked about learning to be in front of a camera and how to use all of the different platforms we're familiar with now, and how important it was to collaborate with our colleagues and have access to our colleagues to be able to learn that technology on the fly. That was very helpful. Rosie Allen gave us a really great tip that if you have a phone with a pop socket on the back and you use that as your camera, you can hang that from your coffee mug. And that is your, that's a, a tripod in an emergency if you'd like to do that. And then for the third question, one skill that you'll have to refresh, again, doing in-person programming, we talked about that, going back into the office and, or, doing those both simultaneously, doing remote work and office work. Carrying, one person mentioned carrying our equipment back and forth that we now need to do things remotely and online. But also just getting back into the habit of carrying our program materials to our offerings again and needing to maybe build some muscle again doing that. And lastly, we talked about time management with, that'll be different. Just, like Janet mentioned, we're used to going from one Zoom meeting to the next, and now we're gonna have to get back to planning travel time in between our meetings. And so just being more conscious of our schedules changing as well. And that's all I have.
Thanks, Sarah. You did a great job capturing what our group talked about. So I will pass this off to group 4 and Danielle.
And actually, Mindy from Kentucky is going to report on the notes we took.
Hi, for our first question, and I think lots has been touched on that we talked about as well, but let me touch on a couple of things that we haven't talked about. First of all, one of the trends that we're concerned about is the national epidemic of obesity, and especially that's a concern that we have seen in several states in our southern region, and especially, and then also Maryland has had some issues with obesity. And excuse me, and as the pandemic raged in Arkansas, they were able to talk about the effects of obesity through a day-to-day diabetes program. That was an 8-week session that they did via Zoom, and it was a 30-minute session that they were able to use PowerPoints from their specialist, and then they did it via, not via Zoom, but via Facebook Live. And so they were able to present this to people across the state, and they worked with people who had diabetes, and then they were able to translate that to different regions of the state as well. And Maryland has been able to use the Dining with Diabetes program in a virtual format, and we've also done that in Kentucky. We are also concerned about FCS careers and what is happening with the FCS education and that sort of thing. In South Dakota, they are concerned about moving away from family resource management specialists. And as the pandemic raged, we have become aware of the need for that type of programming. And so we definitely want to make sure that those needs are being addressed and that people are getting that type of education, because we know how important it is that families have access to family resource management resources. Of course, opioids are a concern, and drug use in general, and we are addressing that in lots and lots of different ways. And then another concern that we've had is gerontology. And so I think it was Arkansas that has specialists coming, or maybe, I'm sorry, maybe it wasn't Arkansas, maybe it was Iowa, has specialists coming from the state, from the university, who having conversations with local people that are experiencing aging issues and that sort of thing. And so these are all concerns that we feel like that NEAFCS needs to get in front of, and we need to be able to address these with our membership so that we can, of course, move that on down the line, and so that we can deal with our clientele in a great way. As far as the next two questions, I think everything that we talked about has also already been addressed. We do need to, of course, be concerned about work-life balance and make sure that we are not just teaching people how to say no, but that we are learning how to say no ourselves, because that is so important. And we have learned through the pandemic the importance of saying no. And we have learned the importance of giving ourselves grace as well as those with whom we work, so that none of us are perfect, and we should not expect anyone else to be perfect either. And then probably something that we probably all need to work on is brushing up on our office attire and keeping our offices clean, because we probably haven't had to do that for a while. So if you aren't, if you have your yoga pants on, and your fancy top or whatever, it's okay. We're giving you some grace, but when you're back in that office, you probably want to come out of those yoga pants. So that's probably the most of what we talked about. So.
Okay, awesome. That's some great discussion and some great thoughts. So if the people that took notes can actually put those into a Word document and then email those to Mary Liz, that would be awesome. Or if you email them to Will and he can get those to Mary Liz. But thank you so much. I'm going to turn this back over to Mary Liz and let her finish up, or Diane. I guess maybe Diane, you're doing the last thoughts of the day.
Yes, Mary Liz just put her email in the chat, so those of you that were scribes can send her what we talked about. I just want to wrap this up and again, thank all of you for taking time. I think we had some great conversations in our breakout rooms, and I know that being in meetings like this with you, our members, inspires me, gives me great ideas. So if there's nothing else, I want to thank you for attending and thank you for being NEAFCS members, and thank you for being leaders in NEAFCS in your affiliate. I'll hang on for a minute or so in case anybody else has anything, but y'all have a great day and a great rest of the week.